Now let's look at the power of a quotient property, which is very similar to the power of a product property, except this time inside our parentheses we usually have a division problem instead of a multiplication problem. Hence that word quotient, because we know the quotient is the answer to a division problem. So let's look at this first example that's been done for us. We have 2/3 raised to the second power. So just as we did before, when taking the power of a quotient, we divide the powers of the numerator and of the denominator. So to put that in simple terms, basically the way that I remind myself is that if I have an exponent on the outside of the parentheses, that I distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. So both the numerator and the denominator get the exponent. So notice I raise the 2 to the second power, and I also raise the 3 to the second power. And when I evaluate and simplify, I get 4/9. So let's look at another example with variables. This one is x over y raised to the third power. So with the power of a quotient property, I can distribute that exponent to both the numerator and the denominator. And that's it. There's nothing else I can do. So my final answer is x to the third power over y to the third power. All right, this next example, we have a fraction, and then we have a variable as the exponent. But you're treating it the exact same way that you would if it was a number as an exponent. And you're using that power of a quotient property and making sure that both the numerator and the denominator are given the exponent. So the simplified version would be 1 to the power of x over 2 to the power of x. And that's it. That's all you can do. All right, this next one looks like we're actually going to be combining some properties because I have both multiplication and division. I have in my numerator the 3 that's being multiplied by the m, and in the denominator the 5 that's being multiplied by the g. So I'm actually going to use the power of a product property and the power of a quotient property. But basically, it's the same concept, is that everything inside the parentheses is going to get this exponent of the 2. So let's start with the numerator. The 3 is raised to the second power. The m is raised to the second power. Now let's look at the denominator. The 5 is raised to the second power, and the g is raised to the second power. And then go ahead and ask yourself, is there anything that we can simplify or evaluate? Well, we can go ahead and raise the 3 to the second power, which is 9. And then we can go ahead and raise the 5 to the second power, which is 25. And we get 9m squared over 25g squared. And I believe that's all we can do. Okay, last one. Once again, this is both power of a quotient and power of a product, because you notice that in our denominator, we have a number and a variable being multiplied together. So I'm going to look at this exponent of 3, and I'm going to distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. Let's start with the numerator. The 2 is going to be raised to the third power. And now let's look at the denominator. The 3 in the denominator gets raised to the third power, as does the m. All right. Once again, you want to see, is there anything that you can evaluate? Well, yes, you can evaluate 2 to the third power. 2 to the third power, which is 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And then in the denominator, 3 to the third power, which is 3 times 3 times 3, that's 27. And then there's nothing else you can do to the m to the third power, so you leave it. And you are left with 8 over 27 m to the third power.